I'm going to go over the quiz 2, which is Professor Cooper's from last semester, to get y'all ready for your quiz this upcoming Thursday. There are like a couple things on here that y'all haven't totally finished going over. I know at the time that I'm filming this, y'all have only started Inheritance, and you'll be finishing it up this coming Tuesday. So just bear with me. Some of this might be a little bit ahead of what y'all know, but by Tuesday, you'll be all caught up. All right, so let's go ahead and get started and look at this. So as always, the first thing I like to do is read through the entire quiz at least once. It's not very long, it's just a page, guys. We can do that. So let's go ahead and start looking at the first class. So it says first class, this class has no attributes. This class is only one method. The method does the following, and it looks like it has 5 main things it does. So quickly looking at this, I can already tell that the first class that he's talking about, that's going to be the class that has our main method. This is going to be the class that does the bulk of the actual work. It's going to contain all the instructions, and all the other classes you have or have to write will just be extra little pieces of information that you're going to pull from to use in the main class. So let's see what the first thing it does is. It says asks user to enter vacation destinations. The user will choose a special character that he or she will use to separate the vacation destinations. This character will also be entered at the end of the vacation destination. So if we scroll down and look down here at his example of input, you can see that it says like Breckenridge, Deer Valley, Zermatt, Whistler, and in between each of them it has a little asterisk. That would be the little special character he's talking about in this case. And there's one at the end too, and that's going to be very important that we have that in our code. So let's look at not question 2, but like point 2 in the first class. So it says this method is also going to count the number of vacation destinations entered. There will also be less than 35 vacation destinations. And he gave us a hint. He says, hint, you can use a loop to count the number of special characters entered. So just before we move on, this line right here is really important if you are in Professor Cooper and Professor Collier's class, because they are very, very, very tough on making sure you use the appropriate data types for stuff. So if you were to use because it's 35, we are going to use byte, and we'll get to that in a minute. Like if you were to use int and you're in Professor Collier Cooper's class, they'll definitely take off points for that because you could have used like a better data type. I don't think Professor Knighton's as picky about that, but I still say do it just to be on the safe side. I don't know, because Professor Cooper kind of oversees all the classes, so I would always default to doing what he says he likes his students to do. And so this is an important line right here to remember for later. Point 3, it says this method creates an array of class 2, which is down here. This is class 2. They give you class 2 and 3, by the way, on this one. The number of elements in this array will be equal to the number of vacation destinations entered. Point 4, for each vacation destination, we want to create an object of class 2 that passes the vacation destination and assigns the object memory location to an element of the array created above, the array that we created here. This is using information in a class 2 object display the total number of vacation destinations entered. So that is the end of the first class. In this particular quiz, he gave you classes 2 and 3. That's really common on this quiz too, that they give you like a little chunk of code to work from already. Sometimes they'll give you like 2 classes and you only have to write 1. Sometimes they give you 1 class and you have to write 2. This, I think, is the first quiz where there's actually 4 classes for quiz 2, but don't let that freak you out. It's not a big deal. You can totally handle it. If you can write like 2 classes, you can write 3 or 4. It's no big deal. So they give you these 2 to work from, and then there's the 4th class you have to write. So it says 4th class. This class is the parent of the 2nd and 3rd classes. So this parent right here that they talk about, this is what y'all just learned the other day about inheritance, and this is very important. We'll cover that more in just a second. This class has only one attribute, which is the total number of vacation destinations. This class has a constructor method that receives a vacation destination and vacation type. It does the following. 1, it adds 1 to the total number of vacation destinations, and 2, it displays the following, where X is, okay, so this is like a little chart just to use. So it's basically saying if the destination put it is like a ski, or like is a skiing place and it has like the type of activity of skiing, this is what your output's going to look like. If it's hiking, it's going to look like this. If it's neither, it's going to look like this. So if you look down here, you can see Breckenridge will be a good place for you to ski. Deer Valley will be a good place for you to ski because those are all ski locations. So your output's going to look like this. So as always, after reading through the problem, it is really best that you write out pseudocode. I'm not going to do that today because I like to draw pictures and it's just not, I don't think that's that helpful to y'all in this video, but I highly recommend really getting your thoughts down on paper in order before you ever start trying to code anything. Today, we're just going to jump in. As always, I don't like to start with the main, which we determined is going to be this class. I like to start with all of the other classes and kind of work backwards to the main. So because we're given the second and third class and we don't have to write those, we're going to go to the fourth class and start here. So let's break this down a little more. So it says this class is the parent of the second and third classes. So if we go up here, we can look at class 2 and class 3. So class 2 says public class skiing extends vacation, and class 3 says public class hiking extends vacation. And we know that fourth is the parent of the second and third. And so from this little bit of information he gave here, we can determine the name of our class 4 is going to be vacation, actually, because of that, because skiing extends vacation. You always, so since skiing is like the child class and fourth class, or in this case vacation, is the parent, you always have like child extends the parent class. So again, hiking's the child, so it'd be child extends the parent class, hiking extends vacation. So let's go over here and we're going to start out with this class. We're going to say public class vacation. Don't capitalize that. Sorry guys. So that's going to be the first step, is naming our class. So this line is now done. So we can look at this. It says this class has only one attribute, which is the total number of vacation destinations. So if it only has one attribute, if you remember, attributes apply to the whole class, and as Professor Cooper and Professor Collar like to say, all attributes private all the time. So it's going to say private is to start off with, because it applies to the whole class, and we don't want this number to change because it's we know it's going to hold the overall number of vacation destinations. We don't want there to be a bunch of different ones. It's also going to be static because we want it to be the same for every object of this class, no matter what. So we'll say public static. Going back up here, if we remember, there will always be less than 35 vacation destinations. This little piece of information is going to tell us the data type we're going to use all the way down here in class 4. So if it's less than 35, we're going to use byte, because that's the smallest data type we have, and that is the most appropriate. So public static byte, and this is going to hold the number of vacations, so let's just call it number of vacations is equal. We're going to go ahead and set it to 0 because we used byte. We have to typecast. Remember, guys, can't forget that. That's very, very important. And again, they'll take off points for that. Even if you put like byte here and you don't get it here, you'll still get like maybe like half a point off instead of like a whole point if you miss both of them. But either way, those little half points, they add up. So we want all the ones we can get. So going back to the fourth class, so it says the class has only one attribute, which is a total number of vacation destinations. So far we have all of this done, which is awesome. We have a good chunk of the fourth class finished. So let's move on. It says this class has a constructor method that receives a vacation destination and vacation type and does the following. 1, it adds 1 to the total number of vacation destinations, and 2, displays the following, which is this down here that we looked at. So let's go ahead and start writing our constructor. As we know, all constructors, you identify them because they have the exact same name as the class. So if we were just writing like a super basic generic constructor method, it would look like this. Let me add some whoopsies. Done. Let me add some curly braces. That's what it would look like. In this case, it says it receives the vacation destination and vacation type, so we know that we're going to have stuff in here. So the first thing it said it receives is the vacation destinations, and so destinations, we could assume those will be a name. So we're going to say string because they're going to take in a string, and we'll say they take in the vacation destinations, or just, let's just use destination with one N, and then a comma, and it's also going to take in the vacation type. Again, referring up here to class 2 and class 3, we can see that there is this up here. This is what we're looking at for our destination type. So where it says super skiing destination S, this is the line that's used to help pass information back up to the parent class of this one. So this is our clue when to use S for skiing and H for hiking is the other thing. So we know it's going to be, we're going to use like the char data type, because see how it's a single character in single quotes and not double quotes. Single quotes indicates that it is a character and not a string. So because of that, this is going to say char, and we're going to say vacation type. And that is what this is going to take in. So it's going to take in the name of a destination, and it's going to take in a vacation type, which is just a character to signify like identify what kind of activities will happen at that destination, whether it's skiing or hiking. I just want to remind you guys, naming of variables, naming of attributes, naming of anything, think about what you're naming. I know Professor Cooper and Professor Collier are really, really serious about that. Again, I don't think Professor Knighton cares as much, but I still highly recommend defaulting to it, just because, one, it's good practice so that anyone can come in and read your code and understand it. Two, it will help you understand your own code on the quiz, even if you like get lost, and it'll help you to be able to read your own stuff and your own thoughts. But three, most importantly, you'll get points off on this quiz if you don't. So pay very close attention to what you're naming things to be sure it's something that you think the teachers will be okay with. So now that we have made the header for our constructor, and we have, oh no, what did I do? Did I delete something? Yeah, I did. Okay, so now that we have written the constructor method header and added in the two pieces of information that it's going to take in, the two parameters for it, we need to see what it actually is going to do when you call that constructor method. So it says it's going to add 1 to the total number of vacation destinations. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So remember, up here we have our number of vacation destinations, and this is going to hold the total number of vacations. And if we're just adding 1 every single time you call this constructor method, there's a really easy way to write that, and it's just write number of vacations plus plus and add a semicolon. So if you remember, this plus plus means you're just adding 1 to the current number. So if it starts at 0 and we call this constructor method once, this 0 is going to change to a 1. If we call it again and it hits this line, it's going to change it to a 2, so on and so forth. So this is the easiest way to write this. You can also write number of vacations equals number of vacations plus 1, but that's more writing. This is a little simpler, a little easier to read. It's how I prefer to write it, but y'all need to write it the way that makes sense to y'all on the quiz. But moving on, let's go look at the second half of this. Constructor. So it said it displays the following. We're at the following. So it's saying basically, if the type of activity is skiing, it's going to show this. If the vacation type is hiking, it's going to show this. And if it's anything else that's not either of those, it's going to show this. So if you have a number of different options of the way things are going to go, the best thing to use are if-else statements. They even give you a little clue right here of saying if vacation type is this, if vacation type is, if vacation type is. That right there is a big old clue to use if and else statements to do that kind of thing. It basically, when you're looking at something and you're like, I don't know how to do it, in your head, if you can ask an if question, then that's a really good indication you're going to use an if else statement. So the first option is if vacation type is skiing, then it's going to do this. And you may be wondering, like, how do you test that? Well, remember we're taking in a vacation destination and the vacation, it takes in vacation destination and vacation type. And we notice that the types up here were S and H. So what we can do is we can say if what do we call it? Vacation type, vacation type is equals. We need the double equals because that's a compare operator. One equals would assign something, so we need to remember two of them to compare. So basically a vacation type. So if whatever letter we have stored up here is equal to, let's do skiing first, so S for skiing. If that's true, then it's going to say, we're going to print out, let's go back, what does it want us to print? Then, so the X is, see where it says where XXX is actual vacation destination. So it'll say where vacation destination will be a good place for you to ski. So we're going to say system.out.print vacation destination. I'm going to go ahead and copy this so I don't type it wrong. Plus will be a good place for you to ski. So that is the first one down. Now, if it doesn't equal S, we need to see if it equals H, and if it doesn't equal S or H, then there's that third option. So we're going to use an else if statement. We're going to say if it doesn't equal S, then it's going to default to this statement. But if it doesn't equal this, then we're going to move on to a third else statement we'll write in just a second. So if vacation type equals H, then we'll say system.out.print. I'm going to copy all of this. Then vacation destination, because it'll be the same thing, will be a good place for you to, and instead of saying ski, it'll just say hike. For the third one is even easier. You just type else. Let's go ahead and open and close those brackets. Copy and paste for the third time. And it'll say, instead of saying for you to ski or hike, it'll say a good place for you to go. So that's really the only difference on this is if you're skiing, if it equals S, then you'll say ski. If it equals H, then it'll say hike. And if it's neither of those, then it's just going to say it's going to be a great place for you to go. And that is that middle section, which is not, it seems a little scary when you look at it, but it's really not too bad. If you noticed, I was able to copy, after writing that first if statement, I was able to basically copy it. The only difference was changing a word here and making sure I have an else if statement here and then just an else statement here. The last thing we kind of want to add in, which is like reading between the lines a little bit, is we want to go ahead and add in one method, and that is a return method to get the number of vacations. When we talked about it, it's going to ask that later. We're going to need that, and we need a way to access it. And remember, because it's a private attribute, the only way we can get to it is using the getter and setter methods, which we have talked about. So we just need to use a getter method, basically. So we are going to say public, and because it holds a byte, we'll say public byte return. We'll say return number of vacations, vacation destinations, just so it's really easy for us to understand exactly what this method is supposed to be doing. So remember, it's public so that any class can use it. We have to say, because we want it to return something, we don't say void. Instead, we put the return type of like the attribute that we're trying to access. It's a byte, so we're going to put byte, and inside, even easier, we just write return number of vacations. And that's that. That's all we have to do for this. You have officially finished your class 4 on your quiz, which is awesome. So now we get to go all the way back up and we get to work on our first class, which is going to hold your main method. So let's go ahead and get to a new page. Public class. We can name it whatever we want. Professor Cooper named it Build Vacation Array, so I'm going to name it that. Again, I don't know how picky they're going to be exactly on your class names. The nice thing is you can even change this at the very end after you've like finish your whole quiz if you think you have a better name that fits it. Just pick something that seems like it's the overall theme of what this program is supposed to do. In this case, you are going to build, you're going to take in a bunch of vacation places, you're going to split it apart, you're going to put it into an array, and then you're going to print out one of those one of those things from the fourth class that we just did. So yes, you can name build vacation array because at some point in this you're going to build an array. And I'm going to go ahead and add my main method header, public static void main. Static. Okay. So we're doing good there. And let's go ahead and look at that very first thing that we do in this class. So it says asks the user to enter vacation destinations, and he shows us what that's going to look like here. So that very first thing clues us in that we're going to need to use the J option pane. And to use a J option pane, remember guys, we have to have an import statement. So let's go ahead and add that. So import javax.swing.J option pane. Again, you can do .J option pane, you can do you can just do the .asterisk to import the entire Swing package and not just the J option portion of it. It's up to you. They don't care. I know that for a fact. If you have a hard time remembering this, this is a great thing to add to your little cheat sheet for the quiz. But yeah, that's really easy. That's straight memorization stuff. You guys got that. So let's look at the next thing. Ooh, let's see what it's supposed to say. Enter each vacation destination followed by a special character. Use the same special character after each destination. So we have to type all of that out. So the first thing we need to do is create a variable to hold that destination location that you're about to take in. So because J option pane is always taking a string and we don't want to convert it to a number because it's not taking in a number, we're just going to say string. And we'll say destinations entered because it's going to be a bunch of them they entered. That's what we're just going to name our variable. We say destinations entered equals J option pane. Now you guys know that now. Show input dialog. Now remember, you always have to put null first. That is very important. And again, just to recover, all null does is means that text box is going to default to the center of the screen. You could put left and it'll default left, right, that kind of thing, but we don't care about that in this class, so just put null. That's all that matters. And so I'm going to type out Professor Cooper's very long input thing, which says enter each vacation destination followed by a special character, period. And then he has it starting on a new line, so you're going to want to add an escape character. And the way you do that is you're just going to say, you're going to end that thing, you're going to end this first part of the string, say plus, and you're going to start a new string. This is how he did it on his. You're going to use the escape character N, which stands for new line. Again, if you don't know the escape characters from memory, that is totally okay. Just write them on your cheat sheet. Those are an easy thing to add. But yeah, just write enter new line and then say use the same special character after each destination. There we go. Not very long line of code. So let's see, ask the user to enter vacation destinations. We just did that, so we're through the first part of question 1. So this is just giving us a bit more information. The user will choose a special character that he or she will use to separate the vacation destination. This character will also be entered at the end of the vacation destinations. Again, we looked at that. On the first one, he uses an asterisk. He puts it at the end too. In this case, it's a $. So we are officially done with part 1 of the first class. So let's look at the second part. So it's saying this main method is also going to count the number of vacation destinations entered. There will also be less than 35 vacation destinations. We already used that bit of information. Hint, you can use a loop to count the number of special characters entered. That is what we're going to do. I feel like that's the easiest way to do it. That's also how he recommends doing it on his solution as well. So we're going to go through that, and I'll try to go through it slowly to make sure it really makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and start a for loop. It's the most applicable loop here. And so we know the vacation count isn't going to go over 35. There will never be more than 35 destinations entered. So when you initialize your counter, it's going to be a byte as well here. It's also important in your for loops that you have proper data types used. So just remember that. If you use byte in one place for something, you're going to basically use it everywhere else on this quiz, on this particular one. And then we'll say vacation count, because that's what we're going to start at, and it's going to start at 0, but we have to typecast because it's a byte. So that's our first part. This is, we just initialized the counter. That's all we did here. I know it looks like a lot, but all we did is say this is our counter and starting at 0. And the next thing, we want this loop to run until it reaches the where is it? As long as it's less than the length of the number of destinations entered. So what we're going to do is we're going to say as long as vacation count is less than destinations entered, which is from up here. So vacation count is just over here, and destinations entered comes up here, where we say destinations entered dot length to get the length of it. And then the third part is always just incrementing your counter. So we're just going to say vacation count plus plus. And then let me go ahead and add our curly braces so we don't get lost on that. But yeah, basically what this is doing, destinations entered dot length, it's going to give you the number of like characters in the string that you entered, because it's wanting, what this loop is going to do ultimately is we're going to create a loop that's going to sort through this long string of numbers that we entered that's being held in destinations entered, and it's going to look for this special character that the person has chosen to enter. So like in the first example, he uses an asterisk. So basically this for loop we're writing, it's going to sort through this whole thing, and it's going to look for those asterisks right there. So that's why we're doing it destinations entered dot length, because we don't want it to keep running after we've reached the end of the string. And the best way to just find the end of a string, even if you don't know the exact number of it, like a number of characters in that string, is to use dot length. It will be your best friend. Know that well. Put it on your cheat sheet. Make sure you understand it. Super, super, super important. Also super important for anyone that hasn't taken TP yet and will take it. You'll use it a lot in TP as well. So learn it now. It will help, I promise. After that, now that we have like the kind of the skeleton outline of our loop started, we need to go on to what is actually happening on the inside. And so the point of this loop is to count the number of destinations entered, and the easiest way to do that is actually to basically count the number of special characters that are being used. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to say if destinations entered dot char at, which stands for like character at, is the best way to think, the easiest way to think of it. Vacation count, if that equals special character, then we're going to go ahead and increment a variable that we have not created yet. So one thing we need to do first before we actually can finish this loop here, which is a step I kind of skipped over, guys, because this is one of those steps that, see, it's not written exactly in here, but you have to figure out on your own. What this loop is doing, where it says destinations enter dot character at vacation count, so it's basically saying, is the character at position 0 of whatever string is in here, if it's equal to the special character that the person has chosen, then we're going to increment the destination count. And then it's going to, after this loop runs once, count's going to increment to 1, and it's going to check the character at position 1, and it's going to do that for every single character in the string, and that's how it's going to that's how it's going to know how many destinations is there. The issue is we're wanting to compare it to special character, but we haven't told the computer what that is. So we actually need to go back up here and add in a little piece of code that we left out. And this is that kind of reading between the lines on the instructions of what to do that you have to figure out. So basically, we're going to call it special character, and it's going to hold a character. So we're going to use char. We'll name it special character, like I used here, equals. This is again kind of tricky. They don't tell you right away, but they do explicitly tell you that when up here, this character will also be entered at the end of the vacation destinations, the special characters. So we know for a fact that no matter what they enter, the last character of this string will always be that special character we're looking for. And so the easiest way to find that and store it in the computer or in the program so that the program can then search for that character later is to look for the very last character of that string. So what we're going to do is we are going to say destinations entered dot char at, because we're looking for the character at a certain position, and we're going to look for the character at the position of the very end of that string. So if we remembered, if we want to find the length of that string, we're going to say destinations entered dot length. But there's one little thing we have to add, because when you're using dot length, it's going to start at 1 and it's going to count from 1. When you're using char at, it's going to start at 0 and it's going to say that first character in the string is 0 and the second one's 1. So the counting is off by 1. So the way you account for that is when you say destinations entered dot length, you're going to subtract 1 to be sure that it starts at the right place. So say destinations entered has 16 characters in it, and you start, like, if you started counting 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way up to 16, it'll say 16. But when you use charat, if you tried to say destinations entered dot charat 16, it's not going to understand that because it's going to say there is no character at 16 and we started at 1. Oh no, it's not. Actually, it will say that. It will just give you the wrong character. It'll give you 1 earlier than you need. So what you do is you subtract 1 to give it the right one. So that's very important. So now that we know what special character is, this line of code will in fact work. So now it's going to say destinations entered dot char at vacation count, which would be, in this case right now, it's 0. So basically it's saying is if the character at position 0 in this string is equal to the special character that we saved here, so if it's equal to the asterisk in the case that Professor Cooper gave us, if all of that is true, then we're going to need to add 1 to a counter for the destinations. Well, we never created a variable for that to hold. So let's go all the way up to the top. You could add it like somewhere in here if you wanted. I just like putting them all at the top. So we're going to say byte because we know it's always going to be less than 25. Number of vacations equals byte 0 because we have to typecast like we've done probably like 3 times in this program now. So now that we have somewhere to store it, it starts at 0. Every time this long statement here is true, we're going to be able to add 1 to number of vacations. So the easiest way to add 1 to something is just say number of vacations plus plus. I'm going to go ahead and fix that capital. Remember camel casing, again, that's also very important. I'll take off points for it. So basically, if the character at whatever number this is at the time for now is 0 is equal to that special character that we saved, then we're going to add 1 to vacations. And I believe that is the end of question 2. Yep. So the third thing it's going to do right after that is it's going to create an array of class 2. It's going to create an array from this, so a ski array, because its class is named skiing. And it says the number of elements in this array will be equal to the number of vacation destinations entered. So it's going to be equal to that number of vacations that we just recorded here. So let's make ourselves some room on here. So the first thing we want to do really is we want to just start that array. So we know it's going to be an array of class 2 objects, which is skiing. So the first thing we're going to do is say skiing, which is the name of that class, and add the little array brackets. We do all of this here to tell the program that we're creating an array of ski objects, because we always put the data type of the array first, which is skiing, that, and we're just going to name it skiing array. It's very self-explanatory on the name, and that's how you would, this we could stop here, and this would just create an array, but it would not, what it wouldn't do is it wouldn't create an array with a certain number of elements in it. Because we want to have this array hold, like have a certain number of elements based on this number that we have here, we're going to say equals new skiing, open our brackets, and we're going to say number of vacations. And this line right here, this is what makes it. So let's say there was 4 destinations entered up here, and this now no longer says 0, it says 4. This is basically saying this array that we just made is going to have 4 elements in it. And that's all that line is doing. So let's go back to 0 so we don't forget that for later. Let's see the next thing we need to do. All right, that was easy peasy. That was number 3. So let's look at part 4 for this. And part 4 says, for each vacation destination, create an object of the class 2, passing the vacation destination, and assign the object's memory location to an element of the array created above. Whew, that's a lot, but it's okay. We can break it down really easy. It's nowhere near as bad as that sounds. It sounds a little scary up front, but you guys got it. So I'm going to teach y'all a little hint here where it says for each vacation destination, when it says do something for each of anything, that's going to be a clue that you're going to use a loop right there. Anytime they say for each, it's almost guaranteed going to be a loop. So let's go ahead and start a for loop because we know we're going to need one. Let's just go ahead and do the little bare bones for it. And let's see what this is supposed to do again. So create an object of class 2 is the first thing. Oh, excuse me. Passing the vacation destination and assign the object's memory location to an element of the array created above. All right, so let's go ahead. The first thing we need to do is start a counter. So again, we're going to use byte the way we've been using the whole time. We'll say vacation count, because it's just a counter, is equal to byte 0. Oop, that 0 goes on the outside. Hold on, guys. Sorry about that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to say as long as vacation count that we just made over here is less than number of vacations, because it said remember how it said for each vacation destination? That's how we know how long this loop needs to run. It only needs to go for the number of vacations we have saved. This variable up here holds that number, so as long as vacation count is less than this number, this loop is going to keep running. And then at the end, remember, it's vacation count plus plus. We're just iterating it. That's all that's doing. So let's go ahead and look at the next thing it does. Yeah. Give me a second, guys, to get myself back on track. So the first thing it says it's going to do is create an object of class 2, passing the vacation destination. All right. So let's see. So let's go look at class 2. Class 2 is named skiing. And it has down here, you can see its constructor method skiing, and it's supposed to take in a string which lists the destination. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take all of this, and we're supposed to assign it to an element in that array as well. So we're going to do that all in one line. So we have skiing array started up here. All this information we want to store in that first element of the array. So we're going to do vacation count because it's going to start at 0. Skiing vacation count equals, we're creating a new object, the skiing class, so we're going to say new, that keyword, and then skiing. And then it's supposed to take in the destination. So we're going to go ahead and pass it that first destination. We'll call it current destination. But as we noticed, we don't have current destination. All those destinations are still in a string all the way up here. So we're going to have to actually backtrack a teeny little bit and do some more work before this line of code will run properly. This is again one of those things that's not completely explicitly like explained in the directions. You have to read between the lines. So we know it's supposed to take in one destination at a time. It's supposed to take in just that first destination and then the next one and then the next one and the next one. So we need to break that down a little bit. And to do that, the first thing we need to do is we need to find, we're going to need to find the index of the destination. So we're going to go back up here and add that variable up here at the top with all the others. And we're going to say int destination index equals 0. And we're just going to store that up here so that we can use destination index OS so that we can use that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out where that first where the first special character is. And if we know where the first special character is, then we know where that destination starts and where it ends, because it starts at the very beginning of that string and it's going to end when it reaches that special character. So that's why we need to know the index of the first one. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the destination index is equal to destinations entered. We're going back to this string up here that we've had the whole time. So destinations entered dot index of, because we're trying to find the location of something, index of, we want to find the index of that special character that we stored up here. So we're going to say special character. So again, index of, that's another method y'all are going to need to know. Put it on a cheat sheet, understand it, practice it. Can almost guarantee it's going to be on the quiz. Sometimes they don't use it, but it is one of those methods that comes up a whole lot. So make sure you practice it, make sure you know it. So dot length, char at, index of. 3 super, super, super important ones. There's another one called substring we're about to use in a second. But those 4 I think are probably the most important ones y'all could know for this. And don't forget, index of is looking for special character, which in this case is that asterisk. And even though there's multiple asterisks in this string, index of stops when it finds the first one. So as soon as it finds that first asterisk, it's going to stop and it's going to return the index of where it found that. It's going to return like the location number of it. So don't worry about the other ones. You just need to know where the first one is. So then once we know where that first basically special characters, we can find that destination. Then we can find that first destination without all the other, without the special characters and without all the other destinations in it. So again, we need a place to store it, so we're going to add one more variable up here. It's going to be a string because it's going to hold the name of a destination. So it's going to say string. We'll call it current destination because that is what we named it down here. So we're going to say current destination is equal to, this is where we're going to use substring. So we're going to say destinations, sorry guys, not the best typer, destinations entered dot substring. And we'll talk about this in just a second. So remember, substring, it's going to have a comma. So it's going to have one thing before the comma and one thing after. The number or position you put before the comma is inclusive, but the second one is not. It will do everything up to that point. So basically, in this case, we're going to say the first destination is going to be everything from 0 at the very beginning of the string all the way up to the destination index, up to that, basically up to this point where we found that first asterisk. So it's going to say it starts at 0, including 0, and it's going to take everything it finds up until this point, but it will not include this point. So basically, these two lines of code let us find, this code lets us find the position of that first asterisk, and then we use that bit of information to then pull the then the full name of that first destination using this line of code. Once we do that, we're able to take that and then pass it on to, when we create this method, we can pass it on to that constructor because that's what it's looking for. So I know that's a little tricky. We went forward and then had to go back a little bit, but sometimes that's what you have to do on these tests. That's why it is better to write out all your pseudocode before so you don't have to do that. It's easy for me to go back and add lines on my computer, but it's not as easy to do that on paper when you write it by hand. So that's why it's super important to not just start writing code and know what you're doing ahead of time on the quiz. But anyways, we have now been able to create an object of class 2 and pass the vacation destination. I know it took a little while, but we got there, guys. The next thing we want to do is, it says, assign the object's memory location to an element of the array created above, which we did actually all in that line. It's already stored in the array, and then it says use information in class 2 object, display the total number of vacation destinations entered. And we'll get back to that in just 1 second because we need to add one more thing to this for loop. This for loop is going to keep running for every till we reach the end of that string. Basically, it's going to run for however many destinations are entered. These lines of code here are able to take out that first destination, but if we leave it and we don't add a fourth line, it's going to have that same first destination. It's going to put that in for every single place, and that's wrong. So what we have to do is once we've used that first destination in this string all the way up here, once we've used that first destination, we have to, oops, sorry guys, the scrolling's a little odd here. We have to then get rid of it basically. So the computer then can then run this program, or this loop again, not this program again, this loop again, and find that second one. So what you're going to do is, because we don't need that first destination that we entered anymore, we're going to say we're going to reassign it. So we're going to say destinations entered is equal to destinations TIONS entered. Sorry, I'm really not a great typer guys. Entered dot, we're going to use substring again. And this time, because we don't want it to include that first destination, we're going to tell it to start at that special character. So we're going to say special character. That's where we want it to start because we want it to pick up everything after that. But remember that first part, the first, whatever, like first element in the substring, whatever you put in first, it's going to include that. And we don't want it to include that first special character. So we're going to say special character plus 1. So that it's going to start it's going to find the special character and it's going to go one more position and start at the beginning of that next destination name. And then we want it to go all the way to the end. And because of that, we actually don't need to add that comma. If you just put only one thing in a substring method, it understands that this is just the starting place, and then you want it to go all the way to the end. So basically, destinations entered, it let's see, if it started as Breckenridge, Deer Valley, Zermatt, Whistler, after all that runs, it's going to get rid of Breckenridge and that first asterisk, and it's only going to say Deer Valley, Zermatt, and Whistler. And it'll run again, and it'll get rid of Deer Valley the second time it goes, and then it'll be just those two left. And it's going to run until it gets to the very end. That's what all of that does. And now that we have that part done, the only thing left to do is it wants us to print out the total number of skiers. So you can see where it says total number of skiing destinations entered is that number. So let's go ahead and write our system.out.print line. And we're going to say, like he said, total number of skiing destinations entered is semicolon, and we'll add a space, plus, and the way we're going to do this is we're going to say skiing array. We want to know the 0 element of the array, which is really the first element of the array. Dot, we want to say return number of vacation destinations. There you go. Remember how in way back here when we wrote this this method, we added this return method here, return number of vacation destinations. This right here, this is exactly what I wrote. And it's going to be the same because that's because number of vacation destinations is static. It's going to be the same for every element of the array. So you just put the 0 element because it'll be the same for every single element of the array. But that is it, guys. That is the very last thing you had to do right here was using information in class 2 object, which is an object from here. We just picked an object. We picked the very first one because they're all going to have that same value. It says display the total number of vacation destinations entered, which we did. So that's it, guys. That's all you have to do. It's not too bad. I know it seems a little scary, but if you look, there's not, I really didn't write very many lines of code. He doesn't really have you write very many lines of code because so much of it's given to you. My biggest advice is practice, practice, practice. Do all of your old assignments. They really break down the tests, and it's like some of them will only have you like take in a number and create an array with that number of elements, and that's like similar to what's done on here, even though it's not the exact same. It's very similar, but it's like a simplified version of it. So if you can do that, then you can then apply it to your quizzes on here. So that's my advice. Practice, make yourself a good cheat sheet that has everything on it. You know, explain what dot length and dot char at and dot index of and dot substring mean, and like write on there that like the first number of substring is inclusive, but the second one isn't inclusive, and like write all that because those are the things that are easy to like get flustered on the day of the quiz and forget. But yeah, definitely don't freak out. Just lots and lots and lots of practice, and good luck to you guys.